Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to yet another K-Swap Acura NSX episode. Today we are going to be tackling the transmission. Just a quick heads up, if I sound a little bit off kilter, I got really sick 2 days ago. I'm just now getting over it, so I'm all stuffed up. So don't roast me in the comment section too bad if you can't understand what I'm saying. All right, so here's the deal. Here in about 3 days, we should be able to build the engine. We're waiting on parts to come back from the machine shop. We're waiting on parts to come in the mail. The only thing I've got so far for the engine build is the pistons. Still waiting on everything else. So that gives us a perfect, nice little window to go through the crusty transmission. Now it's not gonna be a crazy build. It's more of a refurbish, make it look nice and add a few, I guess I should say add one component that is very necessary for this NSX. All of the hardware for this transmission I already removed, and it's all right over here. Freshly zinc plated, which should look amazing when this thing's all complete. Let's go ahead and split the cases. So we need to pull the cable mount off, transmission mount off, the shift selector, that guy comes out, and the cases should split. So if you pull off this cap, right underneath there is a snap ring holding this shaft in. So we do need to spread that snap ring apart, otherwise the case will not come off. Man, oh man, this thing is clean inside. Wow. All right, let's pull it all the way down. We got to get the stacks out, the diff out, and I want to get this thing cleaned up, looking mint. All right, so we need to get all the bearings out of the cases. I find the easiest way to do that is to drop the case. Watch this. Transmission is fully disassembled. All of the bearings are out. All of the shims are out. Let's go through and get everything cleaned up, primarily the cases. The gear stacks are in really good shape. And here is our mod that we are doing on the transmission. This is a wave track limited slip differential. The factory diff in an RSX transmission is an open diff, which means if we went to go do, let's say, a burnout, it'd be a one tire fire, which that's no fun. So that's where the wave track LSD comes into play. I also do need to go through and disassemble this. The balancer that we got to cut off earlier because this car is going rear wheel drive and the shifter cable mount was in the way. We got to clean that up and just overall clean the rest of it up as well. All right, we are on to the cleaning stage. This is always the funnest part. Degrease, pressure wash, either a glass bead or walnut blast. I'm gonna start off with walnut blast, see how it looks, and go from there. All right, so I just did a quick test on this piece here. This is walnut, crushed walnut blasted. Not good enough, man. This transmission just has too much corrosion on the casing etched into the cast aluminum. So we are gonna need to swap out the walnut blast with some glass media, and I'll show you how it looks after. First time doing this. This is a actual side-by-side comparison of just walnut blasted versus glass media blasted. On cast aluminum, you can see the insane difference. Now, glass media is really sketchy to use on engine components such as cylinder heads, blocks, girdles, all that kind of stuff. I would highly recommend staying away from glass media on that kind of stuff, just because it's such a fine material and it's really hard to get out of all the oil gullies and whatnot. So I always stick with walnut blasting on engine components, but on a transmission case, in my opinion, It's completely fine to glass blast it as long as you spend ample time getting everything cleaned out. There's not the intricate like oil galleys and whatnot on transmission cases like there is on a motor. Man, this is gonna be a 3-week process to get this transmission done if I keep going down this route, but I think I finally found what exactly I wanna do on these aluminum pieces from here on out. Because I did some more testing and this is what I ended up with. Now keep in mind this is just bare, there's no coating or anything, so it's gonna look a little bit nicer after we Cerakote it. But I started doing more testing because I completely glass beaded this case. And while it looks nice, there is still so much staining and just nasty junk etched in to the pores of the cast. If we do an initial blast with this green diamond media, it's a pretty rough grit. It takes out all of the staining and etching. And then if you follow it up with glass bead, it gives it that nice OEM looking bare shine. It's beautiful. I love it, and I'm about to pull all this back off and redo it. Probably not, because that's a lot of work. I hate to admit it, but I gave up. I spent so long, so many different methods trying to get that staining out of the case. You can still see it. I went ahead and just blasted the crap out of it with the 100 grit aluminum oxide. And I'm gonna go ahead and just spray this thing Cerakote H151 satin aluminum, which of course is gonna just cover all that up and look beautiful. Now that's not going to give us that same like OEM-ish look that the rest of the car is going to have, but it's going to look way better in satin aluminum Cerakote than it will clear over stained cast aluminum. The H151 is an oven cure, which is nice. So it's going to go 18 parts of that to 1 part of the catalyst. Cerakote's kind of like paint, pretty difficult to spray out if you don't spray it a lot, but man, oh man, I think this might be my best Cerakote session yet. Let's go ahead and bake this in the oven, 2 hours at 250 degrees, and she will be fully cured and ready for assembly. Man, that looks nice. So while that's baking in the oven, getting cured up, we need to take care of this guy right here. I will powder coat this black, but first we need to get this cut all cleaned up and looking OEM. All right, guys, that is what I ended up with. It looks pretty good, nice and clean. I'm gonna give this and this a quick sandblast, powder coat, and be done. I'm not gonna lie, I did not powder coat it. I went ahead, grabbed some good old trusty paint and painted it. Looks good. 2 hours later, the transmission case should be done. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. I am sure glad I sprayed out that silver instead of clear. That looks so good. The bad part is that definitely looks better than the cylinder head and the block. All right, let's go ahead and get the final drive swapped onto the new WaveTrack LSD. Well, it looks nice from the outside, but of course all the magic happens on the inside. So we need to go ahead, pull off both bearings in the final drive. Alrighty, so this is all assembled. Bearings are on, final drive is on. Now, before we completely assemble the transmission, we need to assemble just the cases with the diff installed and nothing else. And the reason for that is we need to check the gap or the clearance between the bearing and the case. If the gap is too tight, we take this shim right here and we go to the dealer and get a thinner one. If it is too loose, well, we go to the dealer and get a thicker one. So we are going to be grabbing some feeler gauges and measuring the gap through where the axle seal would go in. So the OEM spec is 0, so 0.000 to 0.01. Now, of course, 0.00 can be a little bit impossible to measure because it could also be way too tight to where you're flexing the case. So if you're around like the 003 mark to the 010 mark, you should be fine. To start, we have a 002 and that fits. Let's go ahead and try 3/1000. Okay, 3/1000 is in. That's a nice tight fit. I doubt 4th will fit, but let's give it a shot. All right, 4th won't fit. So our clearance indeed is 3/1000 of an inch. Now, being that the diff was the only thing that we were upgrading, we don't need to check clearances on anything else. The stacks are the same, they're OEM. So from here, all we need to do is reassemble. And just like that, my friends, we now have a 100% complete, ready to bolt in transmission. It was a tough call not doing a gear set or final drive in this transmission, being Being that this is an RSX transmission, it does have a 4.3 final drive, but of course all the gears are helical, no straight cut, which means it's a little bit more weak than say the Type R transmission, and of course being OEM gears as well. A little bit more weak than I think we did the PPGs or maybe the BF gears in the Type R. But man, as soon as you start doing gears, it gets so expensive. That LSD was already $1,000. A good gear set's like $4,000. So once you start doing everything, you kind of start getting into the territory of, why don't I just buy a already pre-built sequential and be done with it? Which I might go down that path for the NSX if this transmission goes out rather quickly. I do think a sequential in the NSX would be perfect, but those are like 12 grand, 14 grand. I do think, at least for now, this transmission is gonna hold up just fine. And not to mention, man, this thing turned out so nice. Super, super clean overall. That Cerakote is so handy because if you get a little bit of grease on it, being that it is effectively ceramic coat, grab a microfiber, you wipe it off and you're done. All right, my friends, that is gonna be a wrap. If you wanna pick up this LSD that we installed in this transmission, I'll go ahead and link it down below. Thank you for watching another K24 NSX build video, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Goodbye.